Hi everyone, my name's Tim Keeley, a professor of cross-cultural management. Recently, I published my memoir, A Life in 30 Languages, and many people were shocked by that number, and they asked me, how can you learn so many languages? Basically, the answer is, it gets easier as the number and importantly, the variety of languages you learn increase. In this video, I'm going to share with you how and why it gets easier, as well as some extremely valuable tips that hopefully you can apply to your own language learning journey to make it more efficient, more enjoyable. So buckle your seatbelt and get ready. Learning your first language is the most challenging for many reasons. First, we have to get used to thinking in another language. Until we can do that, we find ourselves constantly translating everything into our mother tongue. And if you're still struggling with this, here are some tips which I believe will definitely be a great help. First, read aloud. Reading aloud helps you improve your pronunciation and reinforces your ability to think in the language. I strongly recommend a dual language book to speed up the process of understanding what you're reading in your target language. And as you read a story over and over again, you'll rely on the translation less and less till you get to the point where you don't need it at all. And if you have the audio, you can listen to it and understand everything. And that brings us to the next tip. Concentrate on building up your listening comprehension. Nowadays, we're so fortunate to have audiobooks, podcasts, movies, etc. in many languages available on the internet. It is a great contrast to the 70s and 80s when I was studying with my linguaphone and small vinyl records as well as cassette tapes. So no matter what material you choose, you may have to listen or watch several times in order to understand without translating. I remember back in 1981 when I first got to Japan, I could converse in Japanese since I had already studied it in Poland, but I had a hard time understanding TV and movies. So I picked a movie that I liked and had on VCR called Kaseki no Koya, or Fossilized Wilderness. And I listened to it over and over again, at least 50 times, until I could understand it without translating anything. Until now, I think I can still remember some of the lines from the movie. Also, you should train your brain by forcing yourself to think in the target language. Start with simple thoughts and gradually work up to more complex ones. Try to describe what you see around you or what's going on, what you're doing. For example, if you're learning Japanese, 現在私はコロンビアのプロビデンス島におります。毎日潜っています。ここの海は素晴らしいです。Or you might try writing a journal every day in your target language. It may sound funny, but I often practice my languages with imaginary dialogues as I'm cleaning the house or working in the yard. For example, if I need a towel from my Airbnb host in Thailand, I might imagine saying, Ko patedua noi dame ka? And if there's something that I don't know how to say, then I make a mental note and find out how to say it when I'm at my desk. Next, we have to find the way to learn that is best for us. Learning languages is quite different from other types of learning. Furthermore, each of us is unique in how we learn. As you repeat the process of learning a new language over and over again, you begin to get a better idea about the strategies and work habits that are most suitable for you. Now, this process may differ depending on how similar the new language is to languages you already know. And keep in mind that patience and practice is required for language learning, because genius is 1% talent and 99% hard work. Next, we have to deal with new linguistic concepts. Every language has its grammatical rules, but it can be quite difficult to understand and apply if these grammatical concepts don't exist in your mother tongue or a language you already know. So as the number and variety of languages we learn increase, the better prepared we will be for learning additional languages. As I became exposed to different grammatical structures, I found that it helped me in learning additional languages in that language family, and sometimes even in languages that are not related. For example, my first Slavic language was Serbo-Croatian, and it was the first time that I studied a language in which virtually all the words, even someone's name, change according to their function in the sentence based on grammatical cases. Whoa! I have to tell you, it was extremely difficult at first. I almost felt like giving up. After successfully learning Serbo-Croatian and starting to learn other Slavic languages, the more familiar and comfortable I became with the case system. So it was much easier to speak fluently, not having to constantly think about that grammar point. And totally opposite from Slavic languages, Chinese was the first language I learned that has no inflections. In other words, words never change. There are no verb conjugations and no grammatical tense. Sounds like a great relief, right? Well, you still have to learn how to express the same ideas that exist in languages with tenses. After getting used to this in Chinese, I learned Thai, Lao, Vietnamese, Indonesian, Malay, which also have no tenses and function in a very similar way. Thus, I was able to learn much quicker. Let me explain to you how it works with something that has been completed or happened in the past. In Chinese, you use the particle le, chi, to eat. Chi la, ate. Thai has the word kai, gin, to eat. Kai gin, have eaten or ate. In Indonesian Malay, we use sudah, makan, to eat. Sudah makan, ate or already ate. Vietnamese has the word da, an, ate or already ate. Next, we have to learn to recognize and produce new phonetic sounds. Each language has a unique set of phonetic sounds and rules. Learning to produce new sounds that don't exist in your native language can be quite challenging. But don't worry, the more languages you learn, the greater your inventory of phonetic sounds. And it doesn't even matter if the new language you're learning isn't related to ones you already know. It can still help you. For example, in English, we have the ng sound at the end of words, such as in sing or running, but we don't have it at the beginning of words. That can be a great challenge for learning languages that do, such as Thai and Vietnamese, Cantonese, and so on. For example, in Thai we have ngan, work, ngai, easy, ngu, snake. As I started learning Vietnamese after learning Thai, it was much easier to say words like ngai, person, ngay, day, ngang, hang, bank. Next, we have to learn new vocabulary. But there are super hacks, and here is one for Romance languages that will help you learn thousands of words quickly. The more languages you know, the more cognate languages there are. In other words, languages which have similar vocabularies. For example, in the case of Spanish and Portuguese, there are many cognates, but you have to be careful with the pronunciation. When you read it, you understand, but when you hear it, you may not at first. In Spanish, la gente corre rápido, but in Brazilian Portuguese, a gente corre rápido. There are also cognates in languages that are not in the same family, but have historical connections. Well, one example is English and the Romance languages I covered in that super hack video. But here's another example in languages of the so-called East Asian cultural sphere, those languages that have been historically affected by Chinese, namely the Chinese writing system. Take the word to prepare in Chinese, 准备. In Vietnamese, chuẩn bị. In Japanese, 준비 suru. And in Korean, 준비 하다. In Japanese, suru is to do. In Korean, it's hada. So, 준비 suru, 준비 하다. For me, discovering similar words in different languages is a joyful part of learning languages. Next, we have the challenge of understanding cultural context. Understanding cultural references, humor, and etiquette in a foreign language can be quite challenging to a beginner. For example, in Japan, during a negotiation, you might hear the person you're speaking to often say, "Hi," which is translated as yes in English. But it doesn't necessarily mean yes in such a situation. It can simply mean, "I hear you, I'm listening to you," and that is a polite way to react to somebody speaking in Japan. The next issue for a beginner is we may lack confidence. When learning a language, in particular your first language, you may feel self-conscious about making mistakes. This lack of confidence can make the learning process difficult. Successful language learning boosts confidence and subsequently increases motivation to learn more languages. This is a positive cycle that can make learning subsequent languages easier and more enjoyable. I've been mentoring a 25-year-old student who seemed very talented to me, and she really admired polyglots and wished to become one herself. But she never thought she could do so because it took her 12 years just to learn English well. And she had started studying Spanish, but had not made so much progress. After getting her to commit to studying daily, especially by reading stories and creating narrations about herself, after 2 years, she not only speaks Spanish well now, but also she can communicate well in Thai and Indonesian Malay, and even understand Portuguese well. Her confidence in her language learning ability is now much higher, and so she aims to learn 10 languages. So don't let your struggles with your first language scare you, and don't underestimate your ability to learn languages. Next, we have to create new linguistic and cultural identities corresponding to each language we learn. This is necessary in order to become fluent and comfortable speaking in a foreign language. I already discussed this in a video about how I could sound fluent in my lucid dreams, but not in real life. You can check it out right here. But this is a very interesting and important topic, and I will discuss about it more in a future video. So if you're interested, please subscribe so you don't miss it. And if you're learning or planning to learn new languages, please comment below and ask any questions you have. That will help me choose what topics I should address in future videos. Finally, my dear students and friends, you live a new life for every new language you speak. We have only one chance of living on this earth, but if we never stop learning new languages, we can live more than just one life. That is the life I decided to live at age 18. And I went to Colombia, where I started learning many new languages. Now I'm 67, and I look back and I'm grateful for that decision. I sincerely hope that discovering new languages and cultures can bring that same joy to your life. There are so many beautiful people, interesting languages and cultures to explore in this world. So don't miss a chance, keep learning. Trust me, the more you learn, the easier it will get. Thank you for listening.